Let's go! Good morning, everyone. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We are back for UFC Austin, where we have 14 fights, 7 of which are expected to end inside the distance. We are back in a full arena, voracious crowd, salivating for violent finishes. And I think that may be on full display here. First fight of the night, where we have Kyle Daukaus taking on Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze coming in as a plus 215 underdog. Kyle Daukaus minus 265 at the betting window. Cheers to those who were able to lock in Kyle Daukaus back when he was sitting in the minus 190s for a significant length of time. Kyle Daukaus is the more well-rounded here, more well-rounded fighter. He's got youth on his side. He has cardio. Roman Dolidze, what can you say about him? He is a strong Georgian fighter with a grappling-heavy game plan who's going to look to stifle opponents, hold them down. We saw it in the Trevin Giles fight. There have been other bouts. I believe Staropoli was another situation where he was able to basically wrap his opponent up and stifle their opponent. Now, Kyle Daukaus is going to have some range here to work with. He is much more fluid. But one thing about Kyle Daukaus, though, is he can get cracked. And I like Kyle Daukaus in this spot. I will be picking him to win. I think that right now the odds are a little wide for my liking, but give me Kyle Daukaus in this spot. Next up, wow, Phil Hawes taking on Deron Winn. Deron Winn coming in as a plus 215 underdog. Phil Hawes minus 270 at the betting window. Now, Deron Winn, I spoke very highly of him when he came over from Golden Boy Promotions and under the tutelage of Daniel Cormier. We saw that he is a wrestling-heavy fighter who is diminutive in nature, the last guy to the scales. He set the record against Eric Spicely for most amount of significant strikes landed in a 3-round middleweight fight. Interesting. A couple of things I have concerns about. Deron Winn, the weight cut is a major issue. The Mearshart fight, in an interview with Ariel Helwani, he said that something to the effect of, if I can't beat this guy, then I don't deserve to be here. And he lost that fight. He gave his neck to Gerald Mearshart and looked for a way out. Let's be honest here. He did. It wasn't necessarily that he was gassing. He just seemed to not want to be there. And against Phil Hawes, who can crack, somebody who can, granted, Phil Hawes does not have a great chin, and also cardio really comes into play with Phil Hawes. He has a short fuse, short shelf life inside of the octagon. I think that Phil Hawes has Deron Winn on the feet here, beat by a wide margin, and also just the mental fortitude. Usually fighters who are wrestling based, they embrace the grind. They're familiar with weight cuts because they've been cutting weight their whole life. But you hear Deron Winn talk about how much he hates cutting weight. And man, what a horrible look yesterday on the scale. I'm not one to totally buy into the weight cut and the weigh-ins, but I just can't in good faith pick Cerrone-Winn here. He's checked out of fights before, and I'll be picking Phil Hawes. I think Phil Hawes is going to make Cerrone-Winn turtle up and look for a way out like he's done in previous bouts. I really thought Cerrone-Winn could be something special under the tutelage of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Daniel Cormier. I mean, who else would you want having your back? But I can't back Cerrone-Winn. Sorry. Next up, Cody Stamann taking on Eddie Wineland. Now, Cody Stamann, this is a guy who had a 17-1 overall record before he fought Aljo, and has run into some tough times recently, has fought some very, very stiff competition. Cody Stamann coming in as a minus 605 favorite, taking on an Eddie Wineland, who I believe is a firefighter in the when he's not in camp. This is a guy who has he's got some beautiful stand-up technique. Granted, it's not very conventional. He kind of developed his own style. Something that works for him. Fights at range, which is helpful inside of the larger octagon. But Cody Stamann has the grappling here, has the durability edge, and he could potentially end up finishing this fight. This fight goes to a decision, is sitting at minus 130. I would be taking a peek at Cody Stamann to win inside the distance. Minus 605. Stamann's got great cardio. He's desperate for a victory. And you could tell that Said Nurmagomedov fight. I mean, we were on Said Nurmagomedov, cashed that ticket, and he made easy work of Cody Stamann. But in this spot, Stamann's salivating for a victory, and I believe that Cody Stamann will win that fight. Before we get to the two low-level women's mixed martial arts fights, let's take a look at the comments section here. Good morning, Jazz. Great to have you on fight morning here. UFC Austin, going to be a hell of a card. Really looking forward to this one. Thank you. Chris, good morning. Yes, we have to, the energy, we have to pick up the energy here. All right, we are going to go get what's ours. Good morning. Yes, plus money on fight doesn't go the distance in the Stamann-Wineland fight. Take a look at that. Now, let's get into some low-level women's mixed martial arts fights where my head spins sometimes. I don't know why these fights have to end up on these cards. Actually, when UFC came to Long Island a number of years ago, back in, I believe it was 2017, there were none. There were no women's mixed martial arts fights on that bad. But if you are going to have one, let's have a high-level mixed martial arts fight. Not so here. You've got Paula-Oliveira coming in as a plus 205 underdog and Muay Thai fighter who's going to look to try to stay at range and land kicks against Gloria De Paula, who minus 255 at the betting window. De Paula has been able to land one takedown in her UFC career. This is somebody who struggled off of her back, somebody who I don't have a lot of faith in either of these ladies. I got to be honest. Paula-Oliveira, 25 years old. I believe she has 5 losses under her record. Not much conviction in either side of this fight. I think your money will be better spent on other spots on this card. I'll be picking Gloria De Paula. I think that her experience inside the octagon, despite 6-4 overall record, she should have more to offer here. Oliveira seems physically weak when you watch the way that she fights. Tabitha Ricci, who should be down at 105 pounds, was catching kicks and taking Oliveira down. Gloria De Paula should be able to do the same thing. I'll be picking Gloria De Paula here. Now, we've got Danny Chavez taking on Ricardo Ramos here. Ramos coming in as a minus 295 betting favorite. Ramos, one thing I like about him, his first professional loss, you look at the way he reacted. I mean, it was like his world ended. I like backing fighters who care about winning and losing. And Danny Chavez is also one of those fighters. Granted, he has been on a bit of a skid here. The Jared Gordon fight looked atrocious there. Granted, Jared uh, Jared Gordon ended up missing weight in that spot. Danny Chavez came onto the scene. I believe he took the TJ Brown fight on short notice and showed us a solid gas tank, had a kicking game, was able to cause TJ some problems in that spot. Ricardo Ramos is a seasoned veteran, despite being only 26 years of age, comes in with a 15-4 overall record. Unless Ramos gets cracked, he should win this fight pretty handily. I'll be picking Ricardo Ramos here. And one thing about Chavez is he's pretty darn tough. He could go the distance here. So I'm not going after those inside the distance props. Wow, the coffee tastes spectacular here. Big Pretty sends her regards. By the way, let's see what we got here. Great start to the fight day. Yes. Wow. All right, Baylor, you're headed to the Moody Center today. Get loud when you're in that stadium. Next up, we have Jasmine Jasudavicius coming in as a minus 245 betting favorite, taking on Natalia Silva, who looked impressive in her past few jungle fights. This is a lady who's been able to lock up some armbar submissions and seems to be very quick out there. She knows what she's doing. She tries to fight to her strengths, but an issue I see in her fights are that strength is an issue for her. She is not the strongest fighter in the grappling department. She can get taken down. Jasudavicius claims to be the next Canadian GSP, the female version of GSP. She said it before the Kay Hansen fight, and look what she did there. She ended up putting Kay Hansen in some tough spots. So in this specific matchup, Jasudavicius, you saw this was one of the iciest stare downs that they had to offer out there. She's going to head into Silva's guard, and I think that Jasudavicius is the rightful favorite in this spot. Now look at goes to a decision sitting at minus 205. I'm not going out of my way to play an inside the distance winner here. I'm going to avoid this fight from a betting perspective. I think that is the wisest decision here. I do not like either of these fighters. Don't trust them. One thing I'll say is you can trust Jasudavicius to try to implement a grappling heavy game plan. But other than that, I am staying away from this particular bout after watching the tape. Next up, Adrian Yanez. Now it's interesting how Tony Kelley has been getting a lot of flack for talking about the dirty tactics of a fighter Andrea Lee was facing. That is irrelevant in this specific matchup. It's interesting. I don't know what was said during the stare downs, but Adrian Yanez appeared to get very heated. Yanez, counter striker, minus 275 betting favorite. I thought that Davey Grant really put it on Yanez and stayed in that fight, arguably won that fight. Tony Kelley, he can fight a grinding style of fight. He's going to look to close distance here, stay inside of a phone booth and put Yanez on his back. Kelley must be mentioned here. He missed weight. So this is Kelly's usually a consummate professional, somebody who typically makes weight. This is the first time he's missed weight in his entire career, 137.5 pounds. Interesting. Yanez, under the bright lights, big city atmosphere, I think he's going to come out looking to capitalize on Tony Kelley's mistakes. Kelley, he's going to get amped up for this one, but I have to side with Adrian Yanez here. I think that he's going to end up finishing this fight with his hands. I've watched Kelley smother Randy Costa and know that from watching previous interviews, when it comes to the actual fight game, Tony Kelley has a great mind. But other than that, Kelly's getting up there in age, man. He's 35 years old, missed weight for the first time, is in there against somebody with lightning quick hands who is able to counter strike, and Kelley fights long on the feet. When he's fighting at range, Yanez should make him really pay. And fight doesn't go the distance, sitting at -140. I think we're going to see Yanez win this fight inside the distance. I know a lot of folks are on fight goes the distance, the over here. I think that these two guys are going to end up trading, and that Kelley, the weight cut is going to come back to bite him in the ass here. Not only is he giving up a portion of his purse, but also I think he's going to be taking the L in this spot. Next up, where we have Julian Marquez taking on Gregory Robocop Rodrigues. Marquez, not long ago, was on the fade train of many, somebody who was dealing with some major back issues, is a fighter who was losing against Maki Pitolo. That fight was almost in the bag. Marquez was really faltering there. Gregory Rodrigues coming off of a fight where he took a lot of damage in his last bout. I was up in the Adirondacks for that fight card, and I was shocked at the amount of damage that he took. Gregory Rodrigues, somebody who will fight for your money, somebody who will empty their tank for your money, somebody who has a excellent jiu-jitsu game that doesn't get talked about often enough. In this bout, I think these two are going to come out looking to trade, and Rodrigues can crack. I trust Marquez's chin a little bit more than Rodrigues here. I'll be picking Rodrigues to win, though. I think that he has Marquez beat across the board, and I'll be picking Gregory Rodrigues. Now, he could get clipped and could get put out of there. And also, the damage that I previously mentioned from a previous bout could come into play. Fairly quick turnaround for Gregory Rodrigues, but I have to pick him in here. And especially, the line is closing here. I believe Rodrigues was up around -200 at one point, now down to -175. Interesting spot. But give me Gregory Rodrigues in this fight. Now, people's main event, folks. People's main event. Damir Ismagulov taking on Kutateladze. Kutateladze coming in as a +140 underdog here. Interesting spot. You watched the fight against Gamrot and took that fight on short notice. He's a kick-heavy fighter, Georgian fighter who, if you compare technical abilities here, Damir Ismagulov is the much more technical of the two, much more precise, has better head movement, is more fluid out there, whereas Guram is like a pit bull. He's gonna come after you, and he wants it to be a war of attrition out there. Ismagulov has faded in a number of fights recently. Now, you watched, he was supposed to fight, I believe, Mustafayev. This was back in October of 2021. I posted the weigh-in there, and I was watching the progression of Ismagulov during this camp through Instagram, etc., at Tiger Muay Thai, at ATT. He's reined things in. Ismagulov looked phenomenal on the scales, made weight, no issue there. Toss that narrative outside the window. Guram hasn't fought in over 2 years. That needs to be mentioned. Guram also, his opponent Gamrot, has rattled off 3 wins since Guram has last competed. Ismagulov is the better fighter here. He's beat Joel Alvarez, Thiago Moises, Rafael Alves. This is a guy who's on an 18-fight win streak. It boggles my mind how folks are going to fade somebody who's on an 18-fight winning streak, fighting legitimate competition, strong competition. So Ismagulov is going to be the pick here. I think he's the rightful favorite, and Guram is a bit of a hype train as far as I'm concerned. Both of these fighters very close in age. Ismagulov, granted, could fade down the stretch as he's done in previous bouts, but he's got a larger octagon to work with here. He has a fighter in Guram who is very predictable in the strikes that he's going to throw. He's a very kick-heavy fighter who's going to look to try to close distance and land power strikes, whereas Ismagulov can pick him off at range. I'll be picking Ismagulov in that bout. Let's see. We've got some comments here. All right. Should Damir Guram face top 15? Yes. You know what? Ismagulov should be in the top 15. It's interesting. Just don't like how talented they are. They both are talented. Yep. Fairly comfortable taking her. Yes. That that line minus 150, minus 160 for Damir Ismagulov, somebody who's on an 18 fight win streak with the skills that he has. That I'm not going to say should be a no-brainer, but that is that's a good play. So next up, we've got Joaquin Buckley coming in as plus 185 underdog, taking on Albert Duraev. Duraev, grappling heavy fighter. These two have apparently trained together in the past, and Duraev was able to make easy work of Buckley in the training room, apparently. Buckley is a fighter who, against Al Hassan, showed off some of his grappling, but he's not going to want to grapple here against Duraev. He doesn't have the skills to compete at that level. Duraev should try to put Buckley on his back and grind him out of there. He might get caught, though. Buckley is a very dangerous striker who will take chances. That's one thing about Buckley. He will take chances. And I think that Duraev, the more likely outcome here is Duraev wins this fight by submission. I think that he's going to end up grinding Buckley out and possibly locking up a submission here. Take a look at that prop and also look at Buckley by KO if you'd like to hedge that. I do not see this one going to a decision. I saw the fight doesn't go the distance prop sitting at around minus 180 at one point. There's a little bit of a bad blood situation here. So I'll be picking Duraev to win, and I'll be picking Duraev inside the distance. Let's see. Daniel says sometimes it takes more fights for prospects to get ranked. Yep. He's back talking about Ismagulov and Guram. Next up, we've got Tim Means taking on Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland minus 305 betting favorite, taking on Tim Means. Tim Means plus 235 underdog here. This is one of my favorite fights on the card. Tim Means, one of my all-time favorite fighters. I love his style of fighting. The Dirty Bird, somebody who has a wrestling game in his pocket. He can grind. Somebody who will fight their ass off for your money, and you'll have to put him out. A fight that got away from Tim Means through the years was Tim Means against Donald Cerrone. That was supposed to headline UFC Pittsburgh. We never got to see that fight come to fruition. Tim Means ended up popping for a tainted substance. That is a real shame. Love the way Tim Means fights. He's got submissions in his pocket. Long fighter, throws elbows. Kevin Holland, much younger. I believe Tim Means is 38 years old. Kevin Holland, fighting in Texas, is I don't want to say phenomenal fighter, but he's long, he's mean, he's coming into his own against Oliveira. We saw him flip that switch, and he could get potentially taken down early. And that is something that really sticks out to me, that Tim Means is going to come out, try to ground Kevin Holland, try a grapple heavy approach here. Now, Kevin Holland looked phenomenal on the scales, 170 pounds, wearing his chains up there, looking the part. And Kevin Holland at range, 6-inch reach advantage here, will probably end up clipping Tim Means at some point, I would say in the second round. And then here's the shocker, folks. Take a look. At one point, Kevin Holland by submission was sitting at plus 1,400. I think that's an absurd line. Now it's down to plus 900 at one book. That's a viable outcome in this spot. I would say that hits about 15% to 20% of the time. Kevin Holland via submission. Interesting spot. Kevin Holland, I see him rocking to Means and then locking up a submission in this matchup here. I know the fight doesn't go the distance. Line is minus 105 to minus 130-ish. That's a possibility too. And there's also a chance that Kevin Holland ends up just cracking the chin and knocking out Tim Means. That's a possibility too. So I see the fight ending via Holland inside the distance. Just the sub line seems way off in this spot. So give me Kevin Holland to win and to do so by submission. Interesting spot there. Next up, where we have the co-main event of the evening. Oh, wait, hang on one second here. Holland by sub not being talked about enough this week. Well, hey, let's see where that one ends up. We don't hit him every time, but that line is way off, my friends. Donald Cerrone taking on Joe Lauzon. Now, Joe Lauzon couldn't even make it to ceremonial weigh-ins. That's an issue here. He's cramping up backstage. Last time this bout was booked, Donald Cerrone couldn't make it to the fight, had food poisoning. I don't know what the hell's going on here, but these two guys should not be fighting each other at the UFC level at this stage in their respective careers. This is, let's see, Donald Cerrone's 53rd professional fight, and you've got Joe Lauzon's 44th professional fight, dropping down to 155 pounds. What it comes down to is Lauzon going to come out like a pit bull, try to come out guns blazing like he's done in previous matchups and take Cerrone out of there. If he has that killer instinct, goes for the kill like he's done in previous bouts, Jonathan Pierce fight, granted that was down at 100, Pierce came up for that fight. He could end this fight inside the distance. Cerrone has a tendency to be a slow starter, as we well know. If this fight gets past the first round, then I see Cerrone taking over. The other thing is, are these guys going to respect each other too much? They're hugging each other at weigh-ins, etc. We need to see that killer instinct here. This fight should end inside the distance. This fight should not go 15 minutes. Originally, when this fight was first booked, I had fight doesn't go the distance, I believe minus 160 locked in for multiple units. So this time around, it opened at minus 180-ish, hovered around there for a while. And now it's up to minus 225. In this spot, I think Lauzon has the skills to get this done. And the inside the distance line for Lauzon is off. If he does win, how is he going to win a decision against Cerrone? I don't see him having the cardio to go 3 hard rounds at this stage in his career. And Cerrone looked shot, man. He looked shot on the scale, looked shot against Morono. I'm going to be picking Joe Lauzon in this spot. I think that he's going to come in here and surprise some folks. Cerrone has the skills to win this fight, though. So if this fight gets past the first round, look at Cerrone. But if it ends early, it's going to be Lauzon in my eyes. But we'll see. Both of these fighters are shot, in my opinion, completely shot, and they shouldn't be competing at this level. Co-maining a significant card in front of a boisterous crowd. So give me Lauzon in that spot. Next up, main event of the evening, where we have Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett's somebody who's made us a lot of money through the years. Against Dan Ige, against Shane Burgos was a spot that we hammered. We hammered Josh Emmett in that spot. Now, Emmett, 37 years of age, coming in after he suffered a pretty significant leg injury a couple of fights ago against Shane Burgos. Calvin Kattar, we saw, the Max Holloway fight was not that long ago, but does Josh Emmett possess the same skills as Max Holloway. Those are completely different fighters. Josh Emmett looks to sit down on his punches and crash the pocket. Calvin Kattar's got to be prepared for that. He could get clipped. Emmett's on some wild streak where he's knocked out a number of consecutive opponents. And the longer this fight goes, Calvin Kattar should pull away, but can Josh Emmett land the kill shot? That's what it's going to come down to. In the larger octagon, that's another thing that needs to be mentioned here. I'm not hearing that mentioned often enough, but this fight's going to take place in the larger octagon where Josh Emmett, it's taken him a longer amount of time to find his groove inside of the big octagon. He's somebody who's very clunky out there. And I love Josh Emmett interviews. He's a guy who will tell you exactly what he's going to do. He believes what he says, and he will fight tooth and nail until the bitter end. I don't hate on anybody picking Josh Emmett to win here, but Calvin Kattar, in my eyes, is the rightful favorite. Somebody who has multiple advantages here. He's got youth. He's got the jab. He's got the volume. He's got the cardio edge. The only thing he is lacking is vulnerability to a massive punch. Giga Chikadze wasn't able to complete that mission. And Emmett's a very different style of fighter. He's somebody who could potentially land the kill shot, but I'll be picking Calvin Kattar to win in this spot. I'm not necessarily a fan of the minus 235 line. If you happen to parlay that up with something else prior to some of these lines getting a little out of hand, then that made more sense. But Calvin Kattar is going to be my pick, and I don't see this fight going the distance. I think at some point Emmett is going to become a bloody mess and end up wearing a lot of this damage. Granted, if Kattar gets knocked out, that's a possibility that this fight may end via finish, but give me fight doesn't go the distance as well. So I'll be picking Calvin Kattar to win and really looking forward to this bout. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Want to wish everybody a phenomenal fight day. And remember to go get what's yours. The other thing, I have to mention this, I mention this on just about every podcast, is that make sure you third-party track your plays. If you're a content creator who puts out content, make sure that you have a third-party tracked record. That's very important in this day and age. This is a results-oriented industry. And if you aren't doing that, if there isn't a track record, how can you have any credibility? There needs to be results if you're offering picks and if you're offering plays. There needs to be some semblance. And also make sure that if you're heeding the advice of anybody, that they are a legitimate third-party tracked winner. I think there's it's one of those situations where a lot of people, they decide they're going to put out content, but then they don't have a well-developed winning process first. That should be priority number one before you start offering advice to anybody. So want to wish everybody a phenomenal fight day. Remember to go get what's yours, and let's do this. Good luck.